and November 12th at 2 p.m. And you can purchase tickets at the door. And then last week we carved pumpkins for the Camp Sunshine Pumpkin Fest, which took place at Ellabine on Saturday. And there were thousands of jack-o'-lanterns, and all the funds they raised went to support Camp Sunshine, which is a year-round free retreat in Pasco, Maine, for children with life-threatening illnesses and their families. And Freeport High School teachers were invited to attend a workshop at Meeting House Arts in Freeport, and 5 FHS teachers attended. The focus of the workshop was an exhibition of portraits entitled Americans Who Tell the Truth by Maine artist Robert Shetterly. And some of our Freeport High School classes will be visiting this exhibition this week. Freeport High School's yearbook program has achieved the Jostens 2023 National Yearbook Program of Excellence Award at the gold level. This award was presented to the FHS Yearbook Program for achievements in the following categories: creating an inclusive yearbook, generating school engagement, and successfully managing the yearbook creation process. Freeport High School's yearbook program is led by English teacher Becky Peterson, and our school is so grateful for her support. And clubs are getting started at Freeport for the year, and our outing club had their first trip of the year on Friday. They went for a hike in Bridgeton. Our Freeport High School Active Minds chapter has been tabling at the Freeport Sports Games, giving out bracelets and flyers to spread awareness about mental health in our community. And Interact Club had their year with a bake sale located at Bow Street Market on Saturday, and the team raised over $1,000 to donate under Theo Ferrara's name. So we're very busy at Freeport, but we have a lot of good things happening. So yeah.
Thank you very much. Very thorough. Great to hear all the goodness. All right. Since we have such a large audience or people that may be interested in public comment, we have allotted 30 minutes at the beginning and again at 30 minutes at the end. But what we decided to do is move all of it into right now. Those are the first part, so we'll have an hour of public comment if necessary. So if you are interested in speaking, this will be the time to speak tonight. And I have some. So before we get started, I will read what our guidelines for the public comment. In order that the board has time to fully consider and discuss the issue, we're setting it up to 60 minutes aside for public input, so that we can hear from the largest number of voices, different voices. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes for comments. For those that have not participated in our meetings before, we'll review a few rules. At the outset, we ask that speakers identify themselves, name, and town of residence. Please be brief and try not to repeat yourself. We know discussions of school-related issues can get emotional, but please remember our children are watching and we are neighbors. So please be civil. We will not permit profanity or shouting at one another or comments that disparage and attack individuals or groups of individuals. Speakers should direct all comments to the board. This is an opportunity for the board to listen to the opinions of the public that relate to school and education matters. It is not a public debate or conversation, so no questions should be directed to the board, and the board will not be responding to any questions or comments if they are asked. We want to listen. The board will not permit complaints or allegations against staff members. These are personnel matters which the board is not permitted to hear in public. If there are complaints against staff, these will be handled appropriately through our complaint procedure KEB. If you are interested in a two-way conversation, on the RSU 5 website, individual emails and phone numbers are available for board members and the superintendent. Thank you for your patience while we make this introduction. All right, and so we're gonna I have a list of everybody that signed up. If there's anybody that did not get to sign up, another list maybe. Okay, so we can, over there, Cynthia has a list if you did not get to sign up on this one. So, but first up we have Heather Sylvester. Oh yes, and then next would be David Webster from Freeport, just so you can be ready. Thank you. Sorry, just a minute. We do have an extra mic up here that we could maybe use. No? No.
14. There is.
I'll take anything else that people want to hear.
Karaoke.
There we go, okay. It's magic.
Okay.
I'm Heather Sylvester, I'm a resident in Durham. And
I see her.
for this policy that's before us, I first want to just thank our school district for making such a welcoming and respectful environment already. I see this policy as codifying what the school is already doing and doing it well. Thank you to the board for bringing this policy forward and thereby showing that it's an important one to consider, and for all of the work that has been put into making this policy. And I also wanted to say that I was really impressed and encouraged and inspired by the work that the school board has done and did accomplish after the last meeting that we had. Or I could tell that you listened to the people that came to speak. So thank you, and I support this policy.
Thank you, Heather. After David will be Nancy Salmon.
Good evening, David Webster, Freeport. First, I want to thank and support the school board, first in responding to the community with the changes that you've made in input, and hopefully voting to adopt the educational best practice policy for transgender and gender expansion.
Can you get closer to the microphone?
I certainly can. Thank you. I came to a previous school board meeting thinking that I had nothing new to offer, and I listened that evening to the comments about confidentiality, and it stirred up old memories. I came back tonight to ask our board and the community to reflect. Not everyone is as reasonable as you are. Not every child feels as safe as your child feels living in your home. A long time ago, I worked in crisis intervention, suicide prevention, counselor, work in and out of schools, and in the community. I was trained to counsel young people to avoid self-destructive behavior, that is suicide and other self-destructive things. I worked with a lot of confused kids and lots of solid young people trying to help their friends. I worked with concerned and positive and supportive parents and other adults. When I talked with young people, I was trained to ask, is there someone in your family you feel safe bringing into this conversation? I expect the same is true today. Last meeting caused me to think back to counseling and a young man called James. I'll call him James. He was thrown out of his home for coming out. James asked me to drive to the family home to get belongings and clothes thrown in the driveway because James did not feel safe. James' father came out raging out of the house. I was scared. After we left, James cried in my car and apologized over and over about his dad's rage. Last time I knew, James was doing okay. He was thriving. But another kid I'll call Charlie was also thrown out of his home. When he came out, last time I talked to Charlie, he was not doing well. I never heard from Charlie again. I listened to concerns expressed about young people talking to a counselor and expecting parents should know everything right away I thought back to these young people and I remembered my own childhood. As a kid, I remember the adults talking about the guy down the street who beat his wife and kids and how powerless they felt. Then no one thought they could do anything about it. A close friend told me her story about her childhood friend who came to hide in her home when his dad beat his mother. After I listened to people talking about this policy, their children, and confidentiality, I felt compelled to come back and say, not everyone is as reasonable as you are. Not every child feels as safe as your child does living in your home. Maine state law says that in certain circumstances, children legally have the same confidentiality and privacy rights as adults. That law comes from experience of many challenging circumstances. Please remember, not everyone is as reasonable as you are. Please do not forget that every child does not feel as safe as your child does at your home. Thank you.
Work on this transgender and expansive gender policy. And also thank the community members for expressing their concerns, their fears, their hopes, and their love for their children, for all of our children. I was present at the first reading of the policy and appreciate the respect that was demonstrated for all opinions and views and for all who spoke and attended. The conversation among board members following the public comment seems to have brought greater understanding of the parents' concerns and fears. I hope the new language, particularly the stated goal for the RSU to support communication between students and their parents about students' gender identity, I hope that conversation and that new language alleviates some of parents' concerns. I support this policy and hope the changes will put to rest some of the fears expressed earlier. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. After Gary, we have Stephen Ferran.
Good evening. I'm Gary Sylvester. I live in Durham. I'm a proud father of 2 kids here in the district. One of whom is at BCS at Durham Community School. The other is at Freeport High School. One of my kids is non-binary, and it has been a process for us. But I just want to express that they've had such a positive experience. And I'm very proud that our RSU is as diverse as in so many respects. I also want to express my appreciation to the board for the thoughtful and work that they've done, the extensive work that they've done, not a knee-jerk reaction, nor does it seem railroaded through. The board discussion following the previous meeting that we attended, it seemed really thoughtful to watch and listen to the discussion play out.
I could get a little closer.
Yeah. It seemed that the discussion following the previous reading was thoughtful, and the board seemed sincerely receptive to the concerns voiced that evening. I don't have any compelling statistics tonight or any heartrending stories. I stand here tonight in support of the policy, and I appreciate your work. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. After Stephen, we have Sarah Guzman.
My name is Stephen Ferrand. I'm a resident of Freeport. My wife and I do not have children, but we are both career educators. I have taught over a span of 45 years. The last 35 here in Maine, and before that in 4 other states. I figure that I have worked with over 1,500 young people, both in secondary and on the higher education level in the course of my career. I want to thank the board for its hard work and good sense, as the preceding speakers have emphasized, in developing this policy for transgender and gender expansive students. It's something that, as a resident, I take real pride in knowing about, because like of the other people who have spoken, child safety and child welfare for all students in our schools is very important to me. I needn't reiterate the statistics about youth suicide in this country at this time, and I needn't remind you, I know that those statistics are far, far worse for gender expansive and small minority populations in various ways of identifying students in the school community. But I'd also like to say that gender expansive people and transgender people have been a part of human culture for a very, very long time. They go back to the beginning of human culture in many places around the world. They are in our legends and religions. When we speak of gods, when we speak of heroes, when we speak of people. They are women who are warriors. They are men who dress and act like women. There is nothing new in this. And I'd like telling a story. About 15 years ago, I worked for an organization called GLAAD in Boston, Gay and Lesbian Advocates and Defenders. I was their main representative for a year. This was in 2005. And in that time, I mostly worked with a young man who was their events planner, having to do with fundraising, but also publicity events. Very, very nice guy, younger than me. I liked him very much, a jolly sort. He was short, dark-haired, and round with kind of a scruffy beard. I met with him 3 times planning activities before I realized he was transgender. He had, he was just a very nice young man as far as I was concerned. That's what transgender people want. They just want to be accepted. They are our friends and neighbors, and they're certainly not people to be afraid of. Thank you.
After Sarah, we have Brenda Laverdier.
Hi, good evening. My name is Sarah Guzman and I live in Freeport. I have 2 children in RSU 5. I'm in support of the transgender and gender expansive policy because it supports our youth and because it is so important for our youth to know that they can be their authentic selves, especially at school, but of course everywhere. And I also want to thank you for all of the thoughtful work that you've done on this policy and for the way in which you've listened to the community. Today, I know our schools navigate all types of diversity with grace and respect and with our trust. And I believe this policy will help our district continue doing the work to make sure that all students feel that they belong. And I want to note that it also feels wholly consistent with the way that we communicate what we do for our students today. It seems appropriate and worth noting that the Freeport High School mission statement calls out the importance of celebrating individuality. So if we believe it, I hope we will continue to act in ways that support it. I want to note that even as I state my support for this policy, I really believe and hope that in a short time, maybe in a few years from now, we will wonder why this policy required so many words, so many definitions, so many explanations, when at the end of the day, this is simply about being fully inclusive of all students in our community. And I really hope that down the line in the future, when we as a collective community are ready, that we will find time and ways to shorten and simplify the policy to a level of parity with all other aspects of inclusion. This is just about people and being accepting of all people. In closing, a quote from Maya Angelou, who said, "We all should know that diversity makes for a rich tapestry, and we must understand that all the threads of the tapestry are equal in value, no matter their color." So thank you for the way that you are listening to all of us.
Thank you, Sarah. After Brenda, we have Stephanie Hunt.
I'm Brenda Laverdier. I reside in
I
Freeport.
think it's that one.
I really wasn't planning on speaking tonight, but I just came from a Shepherdsfield hockey game to support my niece. Hence the purple. And I was surprised to hear how many parents live in Freeport and are sending their children elsewhere because of the concerns of what's going on in the school systems right now. And I asked, why don't you come to the school board meeting? And they said, because you're falling on deaf ears. That's what they said. So you have to at least try. And I can't just sit behind and not at least speak up and at least try to make a difference. The last school board meeting I was at, you said you didn't understand why parents felt like this policy was about secrecy, keeping parents out of it. But it is. You didn't change, you didn't include parents in this new policy. Under section D2, you have that as if requested by a student, they may include other participants, such as parents and guardians. And I really hope that you change that wording to say they shall include their parents and may include other participants. I realize not every child has a safe home, but I think the role of the school here is to guide the children in having that conversation, coaching them, and being alongside with them, so then you know their situation at home if there's an enraged parent. Guiding them through it, they're minors, and a child's right to privacy doesn't overrule a parent's constitutional 14th Amendment right to care for, provide for, and offer health care for. If they don't even know what's going on with their child, how can they provide for the mental health of the child if they need that? They need someone to help determine what is going on in this child's head. Are they being pressured? Are they being coerced? Is this really how they feel? It's about communication, and a 75-year-long study Harvard did on students asking determining what made a successful person in life. The outcome was having quality relationships, particularly with family members. And the number one factor of having quality relationships was open communication. And this policy is going away from communication. You should be encouraging the communication, guiding them with the communication. And even if it's a difficult communication and a child doesn't want to do it because it's a hard thing or they're afraid to do it, help them through that, but don't exclude parents. We are in our kids' lives for all their life, and the school board is involved in it for, 2 years. So I hope that you really reconsider rewording the policy, and I do appreciate all the work you've done on this. I know this is a challenge, but I just couldn't hold my peace. I need to at least speak up and say, please, shall include parents with the guidance and coaching how to use it. Thank you.
Thank you, Brenda. After Stephanie, we have Emily Moker.
Good evening. My name is, can you hear me? My name is Stephanie Hunt, and I am from Freeport.
Maybe get a little closer to the mic. I know.
My name is Stephanie Hunt. I'm from Freeport, and I have 2 students in RSU 5. Testing.
You've got to get uncomfortably close.
Testing. Okay, can you hear me now? Okay. My name is Stephanie Hunt. I am from Freeport, and I have 2 kids in RSU 5. I want to thank the school board for your public service and taking a lot of time to develop this policy, which I support. My experience with transgender and gender non-conforming youth is with my nephew, who is one of the most amazing humans that I know. He is and has been a straight A student for his entire life. He is a profoundly gifted musician. He is now in college studying engineering. And I know that he is going to do great things for his community, for the country. And he can only reach his potential with support, acceptance, and empowerment from his community. And I hope that with this policy, trans youth in our community will also feel that support and be able to reach their potential and their goals. Thank you.
After Emily, we have Nina Wheel.
Can you hear me? Super. Okay. Good evening. My name is Emily Moker. I live in Durham, and I'm the parent of 3 students in the district. And I'm here this evening to again present a community letter of support for the policy on tonight's agenda. The letter reads as follows. We, the below co-signing community members of RSU 5 towns, support the drafted policy ACAAA, transgender and gender expansive students. We value the health, safety, and rights of transgender and gender expansive students in our school communities. We recognize that individual transgender and gender expansive people, including children, deserve privacy and the autonomy to decide when and to whom they disclose their gender identity, and that they deserve respect, safety, and support when they do disclose it. We commend the board for taking the initiative to write this policy and to provide our educators with a roadmap with which to navigate these sensitive topics. We urge the board to vote in favor of passing policy ACAAA as written now in this second draft. Thank you for all the hard work that you do to serve our unique and vibrant school community. And this letter has now been signed by 269 people from Durham, Freeport, and Pownell. And you should have been emailed those updated numbers this morning. So thank you all again for your hard work on this policy and for supporting our students. Have a good evening.
After Nina, we have Stacy Benton. Okay.
Hi, I'm Nina Weil. I live in Freeport. I'm here to urge you all to continue to pass this policy because, in my opinion, today's transphobia sounds similar to the 1970s homophobia, which we can all look back on with disgrace. Likewise, the civil rights movement a decade earlier. People didn't want to share bathrooms with Black people, then they didn't want to share bathrooms with gay people, and now the words Black and gay have been replaced with trans. Thank you to the board for unanimously voting to move this important policy forward. And as Zoe Zephyr, an elected official in Missoula, Montana, House of Representative and openly trans woman said, it's easy to stand tall when you're on the right side of history. Thank you.
After Stacy, we have Mary Pennington.
Hello, my name is Stacy Ventimilla, and I'm from Freeport. I'm just here to say that I support this policy and appreciate the care and thoughtful discussion the board took in developing the policy. Thank you for your commitment to all of our students. I also wanted to show my appreciation for our school staff who share that commitment and are dedicated to making our schools inclusive and safe for all. In closing, I'd like to share a quote from Chase Strangio, who is the Deputy Director for Transgender Justice with the ACLU's LGBTQ and HIV project. When young people are affirmed in their identity, they thrive. Thank you.
After Mary, we have James Harrison.
Mary Pennington, Durham. I have 2 students who went through the entire RSU 5 system. Thank you to the board for codifying these best practices in order to support transgender and gender expansive students. I support this policy. I applaud your work in sifting through some really strong emotions and significant public pushback, but ultimately doing the right thing for a really vulnerable population.
After James, Liz Gardner.
Hello, my name is Jamie Harrison. I live in Freeport. I have 3 children, two that have graduated Freeport High and one who is a junior right now. I also have a Master of Divinity from a very conservative seminary in Kentucky. If anybody wants to discuss theological issues at another time, I'm wide open. But I'm very glad that's not what we are here to discuss right now. We absolutely can't have the school become a place to enforce religious conformity. We couldn't possibly ask our teachers to do that. Instead, what your fine work and this policy is doing is encouraging the teachers to create a caring, safe environment so everybody can learn, to put aside, to combat bullying where it arrives, to make sure that people are seen as human beings right where they are, treated with dignity and respect. I can say my oldest child came through and came out to me as trans, I think, sophomore year at Freeport High School. And it was a process. I was scared. I didn't know what I was doing. I knew I loved my kid. I researched. I knew that my first job was to keep this kid alive, and that without supportive parents, without a supportive community, those suicide risks are really high. And I needed to be there. And I did not do it all right. But right now, Micah has graduated Colorado College, is a strong, confident, healthy, happy man with just incredible potential in his life. I am so proud of him in every possible way. Do I know that that's the only way everything could have come out? I have no idea, but I wouldn't risk it for a second. And Freeport High School was there even before this policy, but I saw teachers struggling and trying to do the best they could. And I can see how this policy will really help the teachers and staff really have something to rest on, to understand and have guidelines to offer a safe environment for everyone. Even for my child who is a junior now, is non-binary, I have heard almost nothing but positives about the kind of environment that you've managed to create and continue to support. And I'm very proud to be a member of this community. I'm very thankful for the work that you have done. Again, Jamie Harrison, if anybody had any questions on that theological stuff, I'd be glad to be there for you. But first and foremost, right now, I encourage you to pass this policy. Thank you very much.
After Liz, we have another Liz.
Good evening.
Dolce, sorry, go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Liz Gardner from Freeport, and I have two children in the RSU 5 school system. I'm here tonight in support of transgender and gender expansive rights and want to thank the school board for passing the first draft of this plan. Thank you for your consideration in implementing this policy. Doing so will cement a healthy environment where everyone is treated with respect and dignity. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. After Liz, we have Michelle Bossy.
Good evening. My name is Liz Dolce. I am a resident of Pownell, a grandmother of two children in RSU 5, and I strongly support the policy on transgender and gender expressive students. As a retired biology professor at a college in Vermont, I would like to share a few experiences I've had with a trans student. I met Carol at an orientation for first-year biology majors. Presenting as a male in appearance, she introduced herself to the group. Hello, my name is Carol and I am trans. I could sense some apprehension in her voice, but she was beginning her college education true to herself. Carol enrolled in a first-year seminar course I taught called Pretty or Nasty, The World of Cosmetics. The course was interdisciplinary in nature, covering such topics as the history, the marketing, the chemistry, the safety, and other topics related to cosmetics. As you might expect, the course attracted primarily female students. One of the first assignments in the course was to define beauty through the lens of different cultures. To facilitate the discussion of beauty as defined in Western cultures, the students did makeovers of each other in class. One student had previous experience in cosmetology and was eager to do Carol's makeover. I can still see Carol's reaction when she looked in the mirror after her makeover was completed. She literally jumped back, totally awestruck, and tears came to her eyes. The class supported her with a loud round of applause. In contrast, another experience was not so positive. Carol was to receive an award at the college's annual convocation ceremony, and her parents planned on attending. Carol's parents rejected her identity as a trans female and insisted that she was a male and be addressed by her birth name, Carl. I asked Carol how she should be acknowledged at the ceremony. I can still see the pain in her expression as she hesitated in reply, Carl. She was still not free to be herself. The trans policy before the board is important. It will support students who, like Carol, in expressing their identities, can do so in a safe and nurturing environment. And they will not have to wait until college or later to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. After Michelle, we'll have Melanie Wyman.
Hi, my name is Michelle Rossi, and I had 3 children that went through the school system. I have 3 adult children, and throughout the whole time, I was always so impressed with the board because the one thing that they care about is children. And I am so grateful for that and am happy that my kids were able to attend Freeport schools. I also am a secretary at Moore Street School, and I know that all of us at our school, at least, we love our children, whether they're shy or have tough behaviors or are anxious or come from struggling families or affluent families, and also if they identify differently as far as gender. We would want to support all these children no matter what. You can't just support the majority. All means all. We would feel terrible if any of these students were bullied or felt like life wasn't worth living. I thought I understood all about transgender identities and was acceptant of people whose identities, who identified as transgender. And but recently, in the last couple of years, my youngest child came out as transgender, and all I want for them is to be happy and to be a successful adult and to know that they are loved. And I'm lucky that they talk with me and try to help me through this. I have to say that I did struggle, and I was super worried that I would do things wrong because the stakes are high. And I'm grateful that they kept telling me. And one of my other children told me when I didn't understand things, they said, "Mom, we don't know how it feels to be inside Maya." And And she's right. And so I listen and I accept them for who they are. I asked Maya if I could talk about this, and they said yes. And I said, is there anything you wanted me to say? And they said, yeah, I just want the schools to support people like me. And so I will tell you one story. This summer we went, okay.
You can wrap it up.
Okay, we went to a wedding and Maya, I met Maya in the hall and I said, how are things going? Because they were worried about this wedding. It was family and everything. And they said, well, it's really, because I was going to the bathroom, it's really hard to like go to the bathroom here because it was just two different bathrooms. So like, I don't understand that, and I think we need to realize it is super hard for these children and these adults. And so one last thing that I know school budgets, because I'm in a school, and I know that people say, and I agree with them, that single stall bathrooms would be great, but let's remember that when budget time comes, because we will have to cough up a lot of money if we're going to do that. And if we really want to do that, then we need to be supportive of that. Thank you very much, and thank you for all your work.
Thank you, Michelle. So after Melanie, we have Minka Holtram.
Hello? All right. We good? Okay. Hello, I am Melanie Wyman, resident of Durham. I stand in front of you again to support this policy. I want to reiterate today, like I said, what was it, almost a month ago now, that this policy only serves to protect the safety of transgender and gender expansive students. And it's not there to limit the rights of parents. It is just to make sure that everybody feels safe and can learn. Because if you were trying to learn and all you could think about was how the you that everybody sees, that everybody loves, they laugh with, wasn't the real you, would you ever be able to stop thinking about that? Would you ever be able to really take in information that would be helping you in your adult life, but you are too focused on the fact that you are essentially not living as yourself. And so having policies like this where you can feel safe to be yourself, at least in school, makes it so much easier to actually become functioning members of society. Like we already have, 504 plans and like all of these support programs for the majority of students, and focusing that on minorities is so helpful because a lot of the time, the big sweeping projects miss out on the few here and there. And so having policies like this secures that so that everybody is equal and everybody is involved. Going back to the policy, the expansion of the language is incredible. It only serves to specify and clarify what it is that you are trying to do for the district, which is to protect the students, and having the more specific language regarding parental involvement makes it, especially to me, less hesitant towards the policy, because it makes it more clear that it is up to the student. It is not expressly, the student is not allowed to involve their parents. It is up to them if they feel safe, if they feel like they are going to be, kicked out on the floor, on the curb and abandoned, that they don't have to involve their parents. And I think that is the most important part of this policy. Thank you. Thank you,
After Mika, we have Connor Mills Dunning.
Hello, my name is Minka Holtrop. I live in Freeport and I go to Freeport High School. I would just like to thank you for all the work that you're doing. I know a lot of work goes into making policies like this, so thank you very much. And I'd like to acknowledge the change that was recently made to 3D, I think, stating that the goal of the RSU5 is to support communication between students and their parent guardians about the student's gender identity. The RSU will offer support to parents, guardians, and the students as needed, which I think is very, very helpful in clarifying parent involvement. So just thank you for that. We appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you, Minka. After Connor, do we have Connor here? After Connor, Melanie Sachs.
Hello, this is loud. I'm Connor Mills Dunning. I go to Freeport High School. I'm a Freeport resident. I really would like to express my appreciation for all the work you're doing in this policy. I think it's brilliant. And I think it's important because it ensures the safety of queer students in both their home and school community with the right to go to the restroom that they find suits their gender, as well as the confidentiality that they have with the school. And it's especially important because it acknowledges the fact that everyone's flawed, and tragically not all parents are good parents. And a requirement of parental involvement could put queer students at a real risk of harm. So that's why I think it's really important. And also, when it comes to opposition towards a policy like this, a lot of parents are afraid that their students are making poor decisions, but our youth is much more intelligent than some people tend to give them credit for. And if they choose to leave their parents out of these discussions of their gender identity, it's almost definitely because they feel there is some real risk of their safety if their parents are involved. Thank you.
After Melanie, we have Jennifer Curran.
Hello, wonderful board. My name is Melanie Sachs. I have the honor of representing Freeport in the state legislature. I am delighted to be here with you all today. I was unfortunately ill during your first reading. I listened to it. I'm so grateful for the many, many hours of time and consideration you've done for this bill. I wanted to publicly come say that, and also to talk about how this policy is actually in alignment with so many of the state policies that are coming through the legislature at this moment in this first session. And remarkably, oddly, ironically, today is the day that the bills that were signed in the first session of the legislature are enacted into law. Several of those bills, such as the ability of main care to cover gender affirming care, whatever that means to a person, a student, an adult, is covered by main care. That a child can actually go seek gender affirming care without the explicit right of their parent. That is now law. It's one of the first in the nation. And also, I'd love to point out that your policy, which is on page 3 under D, about no portion of this policy precludes the student from confidentially speaking to a social worker or a counselor within the school, was just the subject of a very excitingly titled LD 394, which is a resolve regarding legislative review of Chapter 117, rule regarding the duties of school counselors and school social workers, a major substantive rule of the Department of Education. Not sexy, but super important. Because that is exactly what we're doing, is talking about kids and students and the ability of you and as the school board and our community as a school and the staff to be able to support students in whichever way. So the state has your back. That's what I'm here to say. And if you're interested in getting some of the testimony, much of which was repeated, unfortunately, in the halls of the State House, both sides
that you heard writ large on about 5 or 6 bills. I'm happy to point you to the testimony, but the one I wanted to highlight was about LD 394, which a particularly wonderful piece of testimony, which was a group testimony from GLAD, Equality Maine, Maine Transnet, Out Maine, Portland Outright, who's here, ACLU, and the Maine chapter of the American Academy of Pediatrics says, schools are for students. Those students and their stated needs have to be the focus of our schools. In our view, every student matters no matter who they are, and everyone's primary concern should be the health and well-being of the students. That's what I know you try to do every single day. That's what I try to do as a state representative, and also as a parent of 2 kids who came through this school district and are thriving. And I was a scout leader for Boy Scouts, my coach, and you are just here for kids, and I'm here for kids. So the state has your back. Thank you for your work. I urge you to continue that great work and pass this policy as presented. Thank you.
Thank you, Melanie. After Jennifer, we have Osgood.
Jennifer Curran from Falmouth. In 1985, when I was a gay kid in high school, the LA Times published the first of its kind survey, and in it it said, it asked parents if they would, how they feel if their kids came up to them as gay. 89% said they'd be distressed and upset. In 2000, that same question was asked by the Pew Research Center, and that was 73% at that time, so we went up a little bit. 2010, it's a 50-50 split, and today it's a 60-40. 40% of our nation still feels very distressed if you are gay. What was well documented in that survey too is that kids don't come out to their parents typically first. They will come out to friends, and often they know in high school or before that they are gay or trans, and they continue to not share that until they are out of their home. A quote in that study says, it can be much more challenging to approach parents when they are the ones that control their housing, food, and care. In the same information states that many LGBTQIA kids feel more comfortable with friends that are strong allies. While I take hope that a number of adults who might accept their kids is rising, there's still a significant risk for many teens when telling their parents about gender or sexual identities. The Trevor Project just released its studies saying 28% of LGBTQIA youth report experienced mistreatment and housing instability. That jumps to 40% if you're trans and 35% if you're non-binary. When a child comes out to their parents while still at home, they risk everything. They could lose their housing, their food, their income, and their family, all in one outing. So, are these trans policies being embraced here at your school to work so that we deny parents' rights? I don't think so. Speaking from experience, I'm sure a child would love, truly appreciate it if they could safely turn to a parent or guardian and share their LGBTQIA questions or thoughts or identity. However, also from my experience, many of these children who cannot do so find it severely isolating and harmful not to have the ability to turn to an ally or a friend when they're in need. And here at RSU 5, policies. This policy is going to make kids safer so that they can be themselves and not get assaulted. It's hard enough to know that you're different, and most times different than those in your family. But it's even harder if you think those family members are going to outwardly reject you. I was raised in a conservative Christian background, and although I knew nothing about the LGBTQIA community, and in 1985, my school did not embrace the LGBTQIA community. There was no books, stories, people I knew who were LGBTQIA, and I'm still gay. I was conditioned to think that gay was bad. I'm still gay. And I was told I was an abomination by my church. I'm still gay. But the difference is I'm here, still alive. Please embrace this policy, as is, these kids need you. Make this generation different than mine. Thank you.
After Osgood, there's a name that I cannot read, and I think it says Cumberland. So if there's somebody here from Cumberland, okay, thank you.
All right.
Good evening, friends, neighbors, members of the school board. My name is Osgood. I use they, them pronouns, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart for the opportunity to speak today, not as someone who lives in the district, but as a community partner working for a statewide LGBTQ organization. I have been the executive director of Portland Outright for the last 10 years, which has been supporting and advocating for Maine's LGBTQ youth since 1988. I am here today in support of the policy on behalf of the broad network of young leaders, families, and communities who support the passing of the transgender and gender expansive student policy. We want to commend you for your leadership, for your listening, and especially we want to give appreciation to the young people who've come out and shared their personal experiences in support of this bill. There are very few issues that will get very, very busy, overworked young people out to school board meetings, and this is one of them, and I want y'all to pay attention to that when young people are bringing their voices to an issue. In the last few weeks, I know you've heard from members of Portland Outright, my organization, and a number of constituents about the importance of creating safe and welcoming environments for transgender students in your district. You've heard personal experiences from students and parents, and you've also heard oppositions. So taking into consideration what you've heard so far, I wanted to offer a few remarks on the topic of transgender joy and the opportunity that you have in front of you. For the last 10 years, while I've been in leadership at Outright, I've mentored and worked in partnership with hundreds of young people to create new policies, networks of support, and resources in school districts across the state. I have sat with young people who have felt defeated and unheard, as well as young people who have seen adults in their life show up and listen. When we create a school community that nurtures and supports transgender young people, we create the opportunity for those young people to be whole. A quick Google search and all of the comments that you've heard so far will tell you about all of the risks associated with the lack of support for transgender young people. However, I can tell you from experience that young people who see the adults in their lives advocate for them and keep them safe, as I believe this policy is intended to do, those are the young people that will see doors opening in front of them. Young people with this type of support in school will have more access to safe adults and peers, and in turn can be a safe peer and adult for others someday. With this policy in place, transgender young people in your district will laugh harder, love more deeply, and feel more at ease knowing this policy is woven into the fabric of their days as RSU 5 students. This is transgender joy, the baseline that allows our students to be students without the worry of fighting for their basic rights and safety at school. It is a deep breath and it is a sigh of relief. Tonight, you have the opportunity to pass a policy that is in line with national best practices for the safety and well-being for LGBTQ young people, but it also reflects the needs and wants of the actual young people you represent right here in the audience. This policy amplifies and makes official the practices already happening in RSU 5, and I urge you to please pass this policy for these students and all of the ones that will come after them. And thank you for your time.
I could just ask you to tell me your name, please.
I can't read it.
Scott from Cumberland.
Scott
from Cumberland.
What's your last name?
Jordan.
Jordan. Thank you.
You know, I had something to read tonight, but I've listened to so much and I'm still processing everything I'm hearing. My heart's racing. I'm feeling like I'm in the twilight zone right now. You know, I went to war, come from a family of men and women, uniforms, and I've been around so many different people around the world. And I'm listening to what's happening tonight, what's being said, and all the different testimonies. And first of all, I want to commend all those that got up and spoke tonight. But I can't join in this love fest for what the school board's done, because we don't have a complete picture here tonight. The minority is here tonight. The majority is not. There's so many people that do not agree with this, but they're not here. And you know why they're not here? They don't want to be bullied. They don't want to lose their jobs. Those are the people you should be talking to before writing a policy. You know, when you create a policy like this, are you thinking about that biological boy that thinks that they're a girl and they walk in the locker room? Have you thought about the 99% of the biological girls who feel uncomfortable changing in front of that boy? You probably haven't. And the crazy thing is the majority of the board is women. Did I say something offensive? okay? I can tell you as a man, if you went into a locker room full of boys and you had a young lady coming in there, the boys are not gonna feel probably the same way that the young ladies feel. You're creating an environment where you're protecting the minority over the majority, but you're making the majority feel uncomfortable. If you wanna be welcoming, inclusive, diverse, think about the majority who you're making feel uncomfortable, who can't speak out. Because then when they do speak out, they're bigots, they're racist, they're homophobic, when we probably all want the same thing. We want to be welcomed, we want to be loved, we want to be successful businessmen and women. We want to be superintendents, we want to be vice chairs of boards down the road. Have you ever thought about the 26-year-old lady, no names mentioned, who was encouraged to transition, had a double, and I can never say the word right, so please forgive me in advance, the double hysterectomy. The lady parts, wants to now be a lady and can't have children. Have you thought about that person? I can tell you the school board is not going to have anything to do with it later when she files a lawsuit. And none of you care because it's not your child. I just asked you to think of all the children, not just a minority of them. But thank you for everything you've done. Have a good evening and God bless everybody.
Thank you. And that concludes the public comment portion. So we will move on with our agenda. So we'll go to the number 8, reports from the superintendent.
Okay, we'll start with district happenings under items for information. Some things that have been going on in the district. We had 52 8th graders from Freeport Middle School go to Acadia National Park at the end of last week to complete some research on invasive species. And their field work has been submitted to the Gulf of Maine Research Institute. And I think as we look at great examples of hands-on education that brings that curriculum alive, this is certainly a wonderful example of that. I want to do a shout out of a milestone reached by a staff member, just to let you know, Rena Frank is the kitchen assistant at Freeport High School. She has just completed her 30th year in the school nutrition program, all in RSU 5. So we just want to do a shout out and thank Rena for the many meals that she's fed our children. And another shout out, Caitlin Peacock, she is a speech language pathologist at Moore Street School. She has designed and installed 4 large communication boards on the playground at Moore Street to support communication for our students with autism and developmental disabilities. And I want to thank her for her tireless inclusivity efforts. And Caitlin also said, make sure that I thank Jason Chisholm, who helped make sure those boards were secure. We sent out this week a reminder for folks to go onto Power School and fill out a form for it's an alternate economic status form. Now that lunch is free, the DOE is using this new form to determine our eligibility for state economically disadvantaged funds under the EPS. This data is not for school lunch purposes. The old form we used to collect to see if folks qualified for free lunch. It's not for that purpose, and it will affect our subsidy. We did send out a reminder this week and encourage families to log into Power School and complete the very brief survey. I've been told by our data specialists, if you log in and you don't see it, it means you already completed it. So some folks have found this. So we really hope, remind your friends and neighbors to complete that form. Transportation, we're still struggling. We have a total of 5 positions open. We are pleased that we do have 1 candidate who has started driving a van for us this week that will shortly be driving a bus, so that will certainly support us. What we've also noticed, as I mentioned a meeting or so ago, our school nutrition program, lots more families are taking advantage of meals. Our ridership is really up this year. Particularly buses in Freeport are very crowded, some of the runs. So certainly if there are folks that could transport their student, that would help some of those runs because they already have one bus that's 70 students in one run at the elementary level. And under number 2, resignations, I'm announcing the resignation of Gabe Wagner, Freeport High School educational technician. And that is all for the superintendent's report.
Great, thank you, Jean. Next, we have administrator reports, and Kelly is already at the podium, so go ahead, Kelly, thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Included in your packet are expenditures for the month of September. Everything seems to be on track for us at this point. We are about 15.8% expended with 63% of our budget committed, because as you know from the budget process, the biggest portion of our budget, the majority of it, almost 80%, is staff. And so, of course, they're all in the schools. We're about 21% uncommitted at this time. And as the superintendent mentioned, we do have some vacancies, which is helping contribute to the amount that's left over, but we don't see any great concern in the finances at this time.
Thank you, Kelly. Does anybody have any questions? No? Looks like we're good. Thank you. All right, and then we have 9B, which is our update from Pownell Elementary School and goal review with Principal Holly Johnson.
Hello, everyone. For those of you that know me, I'm Holly Johnson from Pownell, and here on my calendar, I said glows and goals for Pownell Elementary. So I want to report that the year started with a lot of great energy, and it continues to have that positive energy. We're seeing student engagement growing strong, and leadership along the way with that. It's really exciting to see students involved with the learning throughout the day. One example of this is our grade 2 students had an early science unit that involved them learning about plants and pollinators, and they added a pollinator garden out behind the school here. And it was a great example of with parent volunteers coming in to support. And it was just wonderful to see the students and parents working together. And what they planted here is the beginning of future work together for the school community, so we're excited about that. We also have been starting some work on looking at our playground. It started last spring, and I have a group of parents that are working on looking at renovations for the playground. We've been evaluating the current status of the equipment. We've surveyed students, families, and staff about what they see as needs and ideas for ways to add to the playground. So now we're generating plans, looking at how to outreach to the community and support funding for that. So more to come on that over the next course of the year, so we're excited for that. In your packets, you got the review of the goals from 22-23, and then updates for this year for 23-24. And a lot of, as you looked at the two, you probably saw a lot of similarities, and really a strong focus on social emotional learning is where we're spending a lot of our professional learning and work with students at all levels across the school. And I can go through each of that. Any questions about 22-23? I'll start with that.
I actually have a question. I'm raising my hand. I forget I'm in charge of the meeting tonight. Okay. I was just curious about this establishing the student advisory, just because I didn't see anything on the other side. So did that happen, or how
Yes, last year it did. And actually, like today, I was actually tallying votes right before the meeting. Students voted today for this year's members. So last year we had 2 students from each grade, and we met monthly, sometimes more than once during the month, depending on the projects that we were working on. So this year we actually had to add, I had come up with some ideas on how the group would work, but I never made a process for going forward. So obvious, we had to vote in some new 3rd graders, but so I sat with the members from last year and we talked about it. And they agreed on having not a term limit, but it would be for 1 year. And at the end of the 1 year, they could, if they chose to, reapply, because there is an application they do, and then be joined and be voted on. So results should be announced tomorrow afternoon. So that'd be great. Thank you.
That's great to hear. Do you have a lot of applicants?
19 this year, so it was definitely more than last year.
Yeah, that's a very good number. So.
Yeah.
All right, no more questions.
All right, so looking at this year, some of the action steps we're going to be taking around social emotional learning include continued work with responsive classroom. It is wonderful that the district supported many staff members that had not received the first level of training over the past couple of years. We did an in-house training in June by hiring a consultant. And I think there was 25 to 30 educators across the elementary schools that were able to partake in that shortly after school got out. And then the biggest, really great part of this planning is the consultant is coming back 3 times this year, which will take place in the next week as his first return. And there'll be some more professional learning and then also some coaching. So the consultant will coach at Mass Landing here and at Durham Community was the teachers that were able to participate in that. The teachers are actually really looking forward to that, so it's great. So thank you for that support. The other big areas around student engagement, we're going to continue our work around we've added definitely an emphasis on habits of work. It's not something that was strongly across the grade levels here at Puddle, so we're really working on that as a staff. And a big part of our student engagement is working on content area learning in science and our math work around creating thinking classrooms. It's really exciting to see students really enjoying learning through those aspects. And then it's contagious and we want to keep that going. So, and community building. We continue to grow as a community. Our school-wide expectations are going strong. I've had compliments from families that come in during the morning and they see the patterns of the day and they really remark on how positive the student environment is. So it's great to get that feedback from those that are outside seeing students in action here. And this year we brought back buddy classrooms. This is something that disappeared through COVID. Students are really enjoying that. We're hearing stories about how they missed it when they might have enjoyed it as a kindergartner, but then it went away and now it's 4th and 5th graders. They're the older buddies, so it's great to be on that other end, and students are really enjoying it, and the teachers are enjoying to see the pairing and the learning that's occurred. The other thing that was added is last year we developed a school vision together. That was worked late last spring. So it's something that we are trying to live and support our work, and everything that we talk about and do as a school as adults is really being tied to that vision. And this year we will continue to work on that and develop some beliefs about learning, and that will be added to our work and shared with the community as that unfolds. And then we have a goal certainly focused on academics and continuous academic achievement across primarily reading and math, but we know we want that across the day. And some of the big shifts in that is really thinking about early foundational learning. The district has been supporting some of the new curriculum at K1 and 2. And that work is really around phonics, and the new reading and writing curriculums really emphasize that work and allow students to transfer that learning. And at Tier 2, we're changing some of the work we're doing with students to provide more targeted instruction and really looking at assessments on how best to support students. And math, the same thing. We're really looking at those foundational skills with math fluency. That work started last year, and we're going to continue that work this year. Any questions?
Maddie?
Thanks so much, Holly.
Yeah.
Ooh, these are loud. Oh, wow. I always just like to check in, I'm pretty sure I always know the answer, but you're coordinating with Moore Street School as well and Durham, so
Okay.
that there's
Yes.
similar curriculum and approach.
Yes. A lot of our, a lot of it's district-wide, so like our work with social studies, that will be district-wide. And then there's other little pockets that we make to team together and work together. In the next couple of weeks, we're meeting with the reading writing project consultants, and that's K2 and 3-5. So there's a lot of work the district does provide, whether it's a professional learning day where we do some crosswork together, or some of these are release days for teachers where we get subs for part of the day so that grade level teams can come together and focus on work.
Yeah, please forgive me asking that. I just think it took us a while to get to the point where we felt really coordinated across the district, so I think it's always worth it to hear how that's working exactly. And I also wanted to ask, you mentioned work were not being used really, like in all grade levels.
Yeah, I mean, it's something,
surprised.
it's on the report card, but nothing as a real concentrated effort, not only like reporting on it, but how are we supporting students with that, growing those skills, and helping them to kind of really be a part of that work and understand their, not only their role in it, but how would it be their awareness of the importance, how are they doing with those skills, and so we're doing more of that this year. I would say it was more active than fourth and fifth, but we're really extending it down all the way to kindergarten.
That's good. That should make for a smoother transition to middle school. Thank you.
Thank you.
Malik?
Thanks, Holly. I just had a question about the responsive classroom, the training that the 5 staff members went to. How are they bringing back what they learned to the rest of the staff?
Good question. So some of the administrators were together in a meeting and we're planning for that next level of training. And many of us would love all of our teachers to be able to go sit for the hour and a half that's planned on November 1st, but at this point, it's not set up to do that. So what I did in August when that training took place in June, and when we came back in August and as a staff worked with Responsive Classroom, I didn't ask teachers to present, but it was just a natural flow of conversations as we brought in some of the same work that happened in June. Those teachers added to that conversation. They brought in examples. So it was just a natural, they brought their learning naturally back to the staff and we're growing it together.
Laura?
Thank you so much, Holly. Really great to hear about all of this. Could you speak to the equity walkthroughs that were done and if they informed anything that's happening this year?
Yeah. So that was a part of last year's work. And actually, one of the reasons it was in last year's work was started the year prior that I was here. And they, even the leadership team and Lisa Demick got it somewhat organized, but because of time, it never actually took place. So last fall, I kept it in as part of our action steps. And the leadership team and I worked together to select a tool. There was a lot of resources that the team had worked through, but nothing had totally been selected. So the leadership team last year and I selected the tool, which is multiple pages. I actually brought some of it. And we knew it was just too cumbersome for us to achieve in quick walkthroughs for staff. So the team chose, there were 4 different areas, and each of the 4 different areas, they picked 4 kind of look-fors out of the list of maybe 12 to 15 that were in on a page. And we created a Google Doc so we could use electronics if we wanted to, or made print-offs if a teacher preferred to do the walkthrough and check off what they were noticing. I used my phone. It was easier for me to bring it right up on my phone and go click. And then teachers were invited to visit 1 to 2 classrooms, and then the data was easily done because of the Google form. And that data then gave us kind of a dipstick in what was going on across the school. And that's what we used to help plan for the work last year and into this year.
Any other questions for Holly? No? All right, I guess we're, okay, thank you so much, Holly. All right, we'll move on to number 10, board comments and committee reports. And A, we have board information exchange and agenda requests. And before we get into that, I just want to acknowledge that we have 2 board members, that this is their last meeting here with us. So we have Maddie Bertenton and Susanna Hancock that will no longer be with us after the election in Freeport, but we just want to thank them for their service. 6 years, I believe, and 5 years? Almost 4? 3.5? Okay. Well, thank you guys both very much. It's been, very helpful. I know Maddie has been a leader and a mentor in many ways to many people on the board. It's been very appreciated. And Susanna, you had some fantastic, we loved all of the sustainability and everything that you brought to the board and you signed it. So thank you so much for your work on the board. Okay, so if anybody else has any information or agenda requests. Maddie?
I have to speak a little bit because, I'm a talker. I did want to say a couple things because it's our last meeting. So serving 2 terms has been at times exceptionally challenging, but it's always been exceptionally meaningful work. There's some things that I've been thinking that I've shared with some of you, but I thought I would say some of these things publicly. And I hope that they're helpful to you, my colleagues. I believe that it does not work to come onto a school board with a predetermined agenda, but with an understanding that we're here to serve students. They are our constituents. It is the law. I struggled to understand that at first, but now I see the wisdom in that design. It's important first to keep that in mind. I see each of you as good, regular people, neighbors who demonstrate a willingness to dive into difficult topics with respect for different perspectives. This time of crippling political divides, this is important. It's important because we serve public education. Students are watching, RSU 5 staff are watching, and our neighbors and our friends and our families are watching. They're all watching a lot more than we think. Usually our meetings are pretty quiet, but I get a lot of notes. I hope you're getting them too. People are watching. I believe that our district has a culture of trust that is well established and growing. This board acts as stewards of that trust in board work, in budget deliberations, policy development, and being accountable for the environments of our schools, including things like encouraging student voice, inclusive practices, and meaningful staff appreciation. I ask you all to encourage your community members to participate the way that they participated tonight, which always is amazing when it happens. Ask them to come to participate in public comment, write us letters, and attend the annual budget meeting, which is when, does anybody know off the top of their head, June something? May 15th? Please come to the budget meeting, please. To all of you, please go to the annual conference. Go every year if you possibly can. It is amazing. I think it's this Friday, right? It's the first one I'm on. It's tomorrow. I'm missing it for the first time, but it's so good and it will inform all of your work. Please champion all extracurriculars, the arts, athletics, etc. They're all important, and we have a proud history in this district of valuing all of them. Please take every opportunity to observe teachers and students in action. It's always surprising how much education has changed since we were sitting in these little chairs, even though we're sitting in some little chairs tonight. The residents and the towns of Durham, Freeport, and Pownell are more alike than we are different. It's meaningful to our students and our communities when the school board bears this in mind. I felt that was important to say because before I joined the school, I was told that we were not. And one of the reasons that I said yes to running for office in the first place is because I thought that was ridiculous. I'm really pleased that this board, we treat each other with inclusion and equality, equity. So I'm happy about that. And lastly, I just want to say how grateful I am to have served with all of you. You're really incredible colleagues. It's just been really great. You do great work, and I look forward to all the work that is to come.
Anything else? Any information? All right, we will move on to 10B, Strategic Communications Committee report.
Okay, it's the green piece in your folder, and we met, and the big work we were doing was finalizing the summary for the workplace satisfaction survey, which we brought to you at our last meeting. And the other thing we did was just look at what we have to do this year. You'll see that on the list. We'll be looking at the budget brochure, the strategic planning process, parent satisfaction survey, and mechanisms for more community engagement. That's really the extent of the report. You'll hear from us again.
Great, thank you, Candy. Does anybody have any questions for Candy? Okay, we'll move on to C, which is the Facilities and Operations Committee report. And I'm not sure who's
That would be
doing
me.
that.
Yes.
Kelly, okay, you're the chair.
Brand new.
Welcome to the chair position.
Chairperson for this committee, which is also a brand new committee, Facilities and Operations. This was our first meeting, and this new committee also folded in the Sustainability Committee. So as such, we invited a member of the community involved with sustainability, Bob Stevens, who gave us a report on some of the historic work of the Sustainability Committee, especially with regards to facility and operations. And it had, some of it was, was input such as providing, changing over to LED lights, which was something we could easily do. Other items such as buying electric buses are certainly more complex issues and something that we may still be grappling with for a little while. But I'm going to just invite if there's anything else the Sustainability Committee would like to add at this point from Susanna or Colin. No. Okay. The biggest part of our meeting was a report. Glenn Reynolds, our Director of Facilities, talked with us about submitting a couple of applications to the Department of Education for receiving revolving renovation funds. And if we do receive these monies, they will be used to remove asbestos tiles in Freeport Middle School and Powell Elementary School. And then finally on the agenda, we talked about some of the future topics for discussion at our meetings, including building assessments, analysis of capital projects funding, improvement plans, facilities tour, which might involve the full board, and most germane to the conversation that is happening, has been happening, and is going to happen with regards to our policy. We have it on the agenda to discuss the options and feasibility for installing single-use bathrooms in our schools.
Great, thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Maddie?
I think I only got to go on one facilities tour ever, but I'm hoping that's going to happen soon because it's so helpful for board members to have had the opportunity before budget presentations begin. And I know in the past when Dennis was here, there were usually a couple different options for board members who worked or just to try to get as many people through as possible.
Okay, we'll put it up to our director to try to get that on the schedule as soon as possible.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, we will move on to the Policy Committee. I'm guessing that would be Colin.
Thanks, Beth. So in your folders, board members, we are the sort of khaki sheet tonight. I'm using it's khaki. Light brown, tan. We met on October 6th as a policy committee and via Zoom. And our work, as I spoke about last time, our work involves sort of the regular policy review process. And so there were a couple of policies that we had looked at in a couple of years, including BBPA, Board of Director Member Qualifications, EBCC, bomb threats, and ECAC, vandalism. And those policies were reviewed with no substantive changes. There were a few changes to pronouns, but otherwise remained unchanged. We also looked at EEB, which is Environmental and Safety Program, and after some discussion, we asked that the administration review that policy to better understand whether it is the level of generality is a rather general policy as written, and especially when we were looking at a policy like EBCC on bomb threats, which is incredibly specific. We had some questions around whether it is appropriate to have the environmental safety program policy be as general and as overview as it is, or whether there's some more specific language that we need to be looking at. So we'll be returning to that later. Before I move on to talking about ACAAA, are there any questions about these other policies we reviewed? Or can you care to say anything wrong? Great. So we also, at the board request, looked at our draft policy of ACAAA, transgender and gender expansive students, at the last, not the last board meeting, 2 board meetings ago. The board passed the first read of that draft with some requested changes. So I'm going to go through those changes.
So are you gonna go right into policy review here? Make a motion then to discuss, or are you still doing your committee update?
I don't know, what are we feeling? Should we go? Can we go into it?
Let's
Should
just
transition?
do it. Yeah, let's just make a motion.
Let's make a motion. So would someone like to make a motion, please?
Well, yes, I will read the motion.
Thank you, Beth.
We could have consideration and approval of second read of policy ACAAA, transgender and gender expansive students. Mara and Malik, thank you. All right, go ahead, Colin.
Thank you. Now we're here. So I'm going to go through the policy as we amended it, and I'll point to each of the different items that you all asked us to look for. And just to be clear, we only made adjustments to the things that the board asked us to look at. There were some moments where we thought we had some really good ideas about some other things, and then we checked ourselves, and we're saying that's not our purview. Now our purview is to make the changes that were requested by this board. So if you turn to page 2 of the policy in 3D, I will read the complete. I'm sorry, D3, excuse me. Support plan for transgender gender expansive students, so it's 3. So I'll read the complete item 3 now. In the case of a student who has not yet discussed a change in their gender identity with their parents or guardians, the designated staff person will discuss parent-guardian involvement with the student to ensure that the student feels safe and supported. It is the goal of the RSU to support communication between students and their parents and guardians about the student's gender identity. The RSU will offer support to the parents, guardians, and students as needed. So it's those final 2 sentences that the board had asked us to insert after having looked at some other policies, I believe. So help me here if you remember. I believe that was maybe from the Falmouth policy. Does that sound right?
It was the
Maybe
one or something.
My apologies, Kitty Bug. You had great language. I thought I might go through them all, and then we could return and look at them, just because you all asked us to, and we moved some things around, or we put some of these changes in some places that were not originally where we were thinking, but we adjusted for clarity. If we then go to page 3, D7, we added the following language. School personnel shall not prescribe or suggest medical treatment, nor provide tools that promote or conceal gender expression at any time. Again, that was language that the board requested that we add to the policy. I suppose I would just note that request was made very much after hearing the concerns of the community around issues pertaining that are covered, addressed in that item. So we, again, use the Kennebuck language. Under E, guidance on specific issues, under 1, privacy, D, we added the following. No portion of this policy precludes a student from confidentially, it's good to read it out loud. I'm going to read it as it is, and then we'll make a change to it perhaps. No portion of this policy precludes a student from confidentiality speaking with a school counselor or social worker about transgender or gender expansive issues. Such conversations are confidential to the extent set forth in applicable law. If we go to E2 5, you will see that at the request of the board, we changed 5, the language in 5 to mirror the language in 4, so that it now reads, students are permitted to use the locker room that most closely matches their gender identity. If any student expresses a need for privacy, they will be provided with access to reasonable alternative facilities or accommodations, such as using a separate stall, a staff facility, or an alternative schedule. So now 4 and 5 are mirrored structurally, so all of the grammar pedants out there can be happy about that. I guess that's all we changed. That's all we changed.
Okay. Is there a last page?
Oh, we changed the may to shall. Thank you.
just
Thank
that.
you. Under G, staff training and informational materials, it now reads the superintendent and/or building administrators shall institute in-service training and/or distribute materials regarding the legal rights, personal safety, and emotional well-being of transgender and gender expansive students. Thank you for the catch.
Great, thank you, Colin. All right, so, anybody have any questions, discussion? Maddie?
I was particularly moved by speakers tonight, and again, want to thank the public for coming out and participating in this process. And it was especially meaningful, I think, to hear from students and young people appreciate the language, the clarification we put around their ability to lead the process with their safety and well-being in mind. That was great. And I also appreciated Representative Sachs coming out and acknowledging the new laws that are in alignment with what we're doing here. So just wanted to put that thanks out there, and I'm ready to pass as written with the one typo fixed, confidentially.
Mara?
Yes, I'd just like to echo what Maddie said and say I want to thank especially the students and members of our gender expansive and transgender community for your courage and for coming out and for sharing your voices and your stories. You are loved, and I'm proud of our community, and thank you for your advocacy. I know.
Anybody else? Susanna?
Oh, right.
Yeah, borrow that mic.
I don't know. Okay, all right. Yeah, no, I want to thank everybody, and I want to thank over the past year, everybody's worked on this and everybody's spoken from their hearts and their experiences and wisdom and thoughts, and having shared those with us. I just wanted to question, I appreciate the changes and just clarifying, just because I kind of read it in two different ways. D, the new language in D7, school personnel shall not prescribe or suggest medical treatment nor provide tools that promote or conceal gender expression at any time. I think that's clear, but it just a little bit to me echoes whether that's even allowed to be discussed. And I don't know if anybody else has But I just don't know if there's a nuance. I just want to make sure it's not nuanced that, those things can still be discussed if people want to talk about, options. And it doesn't say that it can't be, but it does sort of say, I guess there's a difference between suggesting and discussing, and I just want to make sure that that's clear. And I think it is, I just, I'm not 100%.
Maddie?
I see it as clear, and to me, the words that make it really clear are prescribe and suggest medical treatment. And that is, we also already have policy JLCD, which is about the administration of medication, that I think supports this idea as well. I think it does not prevent staff from providing resources like websites or professionals, or outsourcing those kinds of questions to people who are licensed to provide that kind of expertise. But I think it's.
Can we cross-reference it with that policy just to also show that it's in line with other policies that we have? Or-
It's, it's not in the cross-reference section. I don't know. I flipped calling.
I see no reason to not cross-reference it, at least in the cross-referencing section. I'm not sure what the change would be if we were to amend 7 to reference that policy, if anyone has any thoughts on that.
My thought on that is that this is saying they shall not prescribe or suggest medical treatment. And the other policy is around medication administration, which is already prescribed.
Right.
So I'm not sure that it exactly correlates. I think it's related, but I'm not sure if we need to cross-reference that policy. But anybody else can chime in?
I mean, I think that perhaps that's your insight on that. I wonder if perhaps we do include it as a cross-reference, but we do not add any additional language to 7 specifically. So that if someone, again, the curious, could make their way through these different cross-referenced documents, and perhaps if they had a question about that, they would then know where to go and look, which is the purpose of those cross-references.
Yeah, I think that just helps show that there's a little bit of consistency across policies. So that's certainly there are 2 different things, but to say that this is the approach we're taking and it's in line with what we're already doing, when we're talking about this as something that's we're codifying practice anyway, that just showing that consistency could be helpful.
Yeah.
I guess I'd be curious to hear Cynthia's take on that. I mean, I don't see a problem with it, but she knows these policies better than us.
Cynthia, would you like to come up to the podium?
You're asking Cynthia to get up from her super cool chair.
Oh no. All right, we'll just give her a minute.
Super cool chair that made
Surprise, she had a surprise podium request.
I fell asleep. Not that you're very entertaining. So is the question whether or not to add JLCD as, which is administration of.
Yeah, to the cross-reference section. Do you see any problem with doing that?
I don't see a problem with doing it. I'm not compelled to feel like it's a must do because we're not prescribing. But if you feel as a board that would be helpful, there's not a problem to do that.
Kara? So I'm usually one who wants to cross-reference as many things as possible, but I'm not sure how helpful that, based on what you were saying, Beth, too, it's not something that is being prescribed. So I would have to look at that policy closer myself to know if it makes sense to connect the 2. If that policy does reference at all gender expression, medical, right? So I'm not sure it relates as much. I do appreciate your question, Susanna, about what is suggesting medical treatment, but I feel comfortable with it as it is.
Anybody else call or thoughts?
I mean, I suppose I think I probably would agree with that I think it, because what is the actual title of that policy? As
Administration of education to
Yeah.
students.
So I even wonder whether actually the inclusion of it might be more confusing in terms of just having those words on the page, to have a suggestion, to like have someone perhaps run back through the document to try to discover a place where we are talking about the affirmative, the prescription of something which they would not find, but it might be confusing. But I do think that we are clear with this language of not prescribing and not suggesting. And I think it is, I mean, to Kara's point, I also am a great lover of cross-referencing, but we do not cross-reference exhaustively. All of these policies must engage one another, and these policies also all must cohere to law. So we do not exhaustively reference any other policies that might be related. But Susanna, I totally get why you made that point.
Anybody else have anything? All right, I think
I
that,
would like to,
oh,
I just wanted to add, since we've heard from the audience, the commenters from both sides, people who are concerned that their kids may be keeping secrets, and also the people who are concerned that we may be pushing students into dangerous situations. And I just want to acknowledge that I felt that the language did a great job of balancing those two concerns, that we we certainly do want to encourage parental involvement, but unfortunately, we also know that many of the families of these students, that a lot of these students do experience a high degree of parental rejection. So I just want to commend the committee for making a good balance of those two issues.
Kara?
Yeah, I echo what the previous board members have said about expressing gratitude for those who have spoken tonight in the previous meetings and sent us messages by email as well. So thank you again, everyone who's participated in that. And I'm also hopeful that the in-service trainings that shall be instituted now will include education or support for the educators who will be in situations where they may be speaking with parents if that's what the students are choosing to do. And I really am happy about the part we added around communication, supporting communication between students and parents. And I think that is one piece of education in particular that would be especially helpful for staff to know how to support that communication. What does that support look like in particular? And I'm hopeful that the in-services will include that.
Colin?
Yeah, I would also just echo thanks to everyone who came out, particularly our students and the other young people who came this evening. But as another community member said, anyone who is brave enough to stand in front of that microphone and share their ideas deserves our respect and attention. I think I just want to add that, again, because we know that there is, we know that we've heard the kind of concern there is around parental involvement, and particularly around sort of questions of secrecy, which, as we've talked about, is not all that this policy is promoting, but also just to remind all of the parents and guardians in this community that under FERPA, they have the right to access all student academic records, and that this policy does not change that. And so the parents are, and we encourage them to do that. And just to be clear that right has not been infringed upon or remains untouched.
Any last questions, thoughts? The only tiny little formatting thing that I found is in the new sentence, in D3, you say students, parents, and guardians, and the former, like the previous sentence has the S for parents and guardians in parentheses.
Oh yeah, that's some good pedantry right there. That's good, that's good. Yeah, so we need to throw some parentheses, in there.
It's my big.
I love it. I love it.
Okay.
We put parentheses around those right now.
That's the way you want to go.
There's something I want to go, but
And we're changing it to confidentially instead of.
yeah, which we will also figure out how to spell, because I tried to spell it like 5 times in the margin of my book, and I've lost the ability to spell as your representative from Freeport.
Okay, so seems as though this board is ready to vote. So we have a motion on the floor, so we will take a vote. All those in favor? None opposed. All right. Okay, we will move on. We have nothing under 12 unfinished business. We have 13 new business. Consideration and approval to employ 2 educational technicians at Mass Landing School for the 2023-2024 school year, 1-year positions, instead of a 5th grade class size reduction teacher. Funding for the educational technicians to come from contingency funds. Motion first. Thank you. Kelly, Mara, thank you.
Okay, if we recall back in August at our retreat, I informed the board that our grade 5 at Mass Landing, the numbers were really high, and they remained high throughout the summer, and we've even gathered some more children since then. And the board took a vote to have us hire a 5th grade class size reduction teacher to support the students in that very large grade level. We had advertised and we were unable to find a suitable candidate that we felt would be the right fit to do that position. Principal Grimm is back. She's off the mountain. And having a conversation with her, we said we'd like to try a different approach to hire 2 ed techs instead. She thinks that perhaps there may be some, although we need ed techs for special education, that there may be some folks that want to work more in this gen ed setting. So we're proposing for the same amount of money that we would have had for the teacher to hopefully get some ed techs, even if it was some part-time ed tech help. That would be helpful for our grade 5 team at Mass Landing and our students, and that I support what Emily's thinking is on that. So that's why we're asking you, so that we can change that posting to a text instead of that class size reduction.
So it's just changing the position.
Changing the position.
Okay, all right. Does anybody have any questions on that? No? Okay, take a vote. All in favor? None opposed? Thank you very much. Oh yes, we should let our student rep know that you can vote. And you also are allowed to leave whenever you want. So you do not have to stay for the entire thing, but I think you're almost there. Yeah. So, but thank you. Okay, so we have a B also. Okay, she said that's 14. Okay, sorry. Okay, here we go. So here's we need another motion. We have a consideration and approval to employ a teacher of English for speakers of other languages for the 2023-2024 school year, 1 year only. And Maura and Lee.
Okay, I'm very excited to present Ellen Sage for this position. Ellen has a bachelor's in French from Bates College in Lewiston. She has a master's in applied linguistics, teaching English as a second language from the University of Florida. She holds certification in Maine and for teaching French and also for English for speakers of other languages pre-K to 12. Some relevant experience. She is an ESOL teacher. She was an ESOL teacher in Braden River Middle School in Bradenton, Florida. She's been an adjunct instructor for English for academic purposes in Manatee Community College in Florida. She's been an ESOL, French, Spanish teacher at Manatee High School in Florida. She's been an instructor at the University of Florida. She's been an ESOL, Migrant Immigrant Academic Program Specialist at Manatee County School District in Braden, Florida. She's also been a program supervisor for ESOL and GEDs and an assistant director at Manatee Technical College in Florida. She is currently a French teacher at Oxford Hills School here in Maine. References describe Ellen as having an extensive knowledge of curriculum and instruction, knowledgeable about second language acquisition, going the extra mile with integrity and a strong work ethic, using current research-based methods and strategies for teaching and learning. And we're excited to have her join our team.
All right, that sounds fantastic. We're very excited that we found English teacher of English for speakers of other languages. My goodness, that's not good. Okay, so do we have any questions? Okay, then we'll take a vote. All in favor? All right, and none opposed? Good. And, all right. So we don't have 14, we just took care of that, and 15, the public comment, we moved to the beginning of the meeting, so we will not have that then right now. So we are going to move into executive session. So I'll take a motion for consideration and approval to enter into executive session pursuant to 1 MRSA section 4056D for the purpose of discussing support staff negotiations for RSU 5. Maddie and Candy, thank you. All those in favor? Great, all right, we're all in favor. Thank you very much. Oh, that's right. Yeah. We put like a plus one. Okay. I'll just put marker. We don't, we come out with. So they'll allow you. I like it.